Welcome to the channel. I have no idea how you got here, but welcome anyway. Today I'm going to look at the teardown of a Industar 22 or Fed 50mm lens on a Zorki 4. So this is a little introduction to the Zorki 4 for the uninitiated, and then we will break down the lens and see how it all goes together. That aluminum piece on the bottom is a Arca Swiss dovetail mount that I made for the camera. It also has a 1/4-20 tripod thread on the bottom. Originally the camera came with a 3/8 16, which wasn't very useful to me, so I made this. It also gives the camera a lot more stability. The original one often had the camera toppling over front or back, so this gives it a nice little base and a neat little spot to keep your film label. So this lens is a copy of the Leitz Elmar Leica lens. I think it was the first lens that they put onto the 35mm original Leica cameras. It being collapsible makes the whole situation extremely small. You can actually fit it in your back pocket. And I kind of like the rendering. It's triplet. It's like a Cook triplet design, not a Tessar, but pretty simple construction. So I thought I'd go through it today. This model has some dust and what ended up being some fungus, but for the photos I take, the fungus didn't really affect image quality massively, so I didn't take that on, although in retrospect I wish I had. One of the larger issues was the helicoil was very unlubricated. I probably should have just lubricated that and moved on with my life, but being interested in how the mechanical design of the lens went together, here we are today. So here we have the aperture control, which is one of the more annoying features of the camera. A lot of these older Russian lenses use these front-mounted aperture rings, which are kind of hard to get to, make using filters a little bit difficult, and are generally not user-friendly. You kind of have to look at the camera facing the front. But here is the telescoping mechanism. You can see the 3 little flanges slide under there, locking it pretty nicely and repeatably as well. Here is the helicoil. You can hear it binding up a bit. And the second reason we're taking this apart was a lot of dust in between the lens, which you'll see wide open pretty clearly here. Some of it did turn out to be dust and grime, but a lot of those small flakes, I think especially on the front element, were fungus. So if I were to go back in, which I won't, some hydrogen peroxide usually takes care of that. If you remove this little knob, you can then remove the main body from the mounting flange, let's call it. So there's the dirty helicoil. Inside there is actually a piece of felt to light seal the lens as it telescopes. This looks like mostly a light baffle to keep reflections out. It's just looks like some stamped steel that's pressed in to this little body. Out it comes. nice and rusty. So here is the back of the lens. You can see the rear element there. The way I went about taking this apart was more exploratory. You definitely, there are definitely easier ways to go about it. I post a little chicken sketch of the kind of assembly of the camera or the lens later, so you can check that out if you have any interest in digging into one of these. But essentially, this is the set screw for that front ring. The way that the front ring goes on is kind of obnoxious because it threads in, but it has to have the optical assembly already in as well. It would be nice if you could take that out separately. The only thing holding it in at this point, well, is threaded, but also there's a little lip on the face that you use to control the aperture. So here there's an inner and outer lock ring. The outer lock ring actually will remove the entire optical assembly. Here I removed what's actually the rear element, which is a little doublet. Totally unnecessary to pull out at this point, but you can get a sense of how it goes together. We'll see this a little bit later on. There is the iris aperture in there as well. Here are my meaty fingers. You can see the curvature of the that rear element. And here's the front. So this lock ring, also unnecessary to pull out at this point. This only holds in the front element to the main kind of optical block. There's the tab you can see of the aperture adjustment, which is the only thing holding that front ring in at this point. This is some Rodico. If you're familiar with watchmaking, you might have seen it. It's kind of like silly putty, but it picks up dirt and grime, and it's nice for picking up small screws and controlling stuff. It looks like there's a weird, you can kind of see it in the light here, there's some sort of, I don't know what it is. There's some damage to that middle element. It doesn't seem to show. It looks like kind of the coating is worn off or burnt off or something like that. Here you can see that front ring unthreading, but it's just going to unthread right into that adjustment knob. So what you need to do at this point is pull out the outer lock ring from the back, which is what you're seeing here, and this holds the entire optical block into the lens barrel. Now you can see that this is free to thread off, and you can remove that front ring. And here is the main optical block. Note that small divot detent there. There's a set screw in the side of the barrel, but here's the aperture and the central element. I did not take that apart. I didn't want to open that can of worms. Here you can get a good glimpse. There's a ring embedded inside the barrel, and that sets the registration of everything else. There's also a washer shim right on top of that. I'm guessing that's how they calibrated these lenses from the factory. and this is the set screw that sets the rotation of the main optical block, which includes the aperture adjustment, so you'll have to clock it correctly when you reinstall it. There's the detent, which is fairly straightforward to do, but you just have to know how it goes together. So here is the rear element. Like I said earlier, you can leave this on when you pull it apart. It might be easier to leave it on and then pull it off for cleaning at this point, but the lens wrench I have is bulky, or I should say the adapters, so I don't think I could get to the outer lock ring without first removing this, although how did I reinstall it? That can't be true. Either way, and this is the main lock ring from the back, so this holds the whole mess together, and that bottoms out against that registration ring inside the lens barrel. This just shows taking the lens barrel out of the helicoil. There's the felt. This is the light sealing felt. The other piece of felt doesn't actually serve as a light seal. I think it's more of a buffer. That one you need to keep intact. I'd keep it dry as well. I ended up cleaning it with some isopropyl alcohol, and it kind of filled up with water, and I think it deteriorated some of the adhesive, so be careful with that if you can. Getting it back in once it's swelled up was kind of a pain in the ass. But here's the main optical block in the lens barrel, so you can kind of see how it goes in and registers, and there's the rear lock ring. Boop. I did a horrible job of cleaning these elements, so I would take all of this with a grain of salt. I just used some optical wipes and ISO to get off the dirt and grime. These are some non-abrasive pads. They're pretty cheap. I got a good amount of dirt and grime off, and I don't think I introduced too many scratches, but a lot of lenses of this vintage have some softer glass. It really depends on the element and the lens itself, but none of these seemed too soft, unlike some of the Sonar Jupiter 3 and 8s, which are extremely soft. Here's some Elmer's glue to replace the felt on the front ring. You kind of want to clock it so you can get access to the set screw that holds this in. Honestly, that set screw isn't horribly important. Here's a blown apart view. You can pause here and take a look if you want. Use it as a reference. I had intentions of modeling this, but never got to it. So here's that rear element, tightening it up with the inappropriate lens wrench. Here's a little super lube for the helicoil. This helicoil is pretty easy to see when you've got it clocked, because it just lines up to infinity right there. Helicoils are usually multiple starts, so you'll have to start it a few times to make sure. Other lenses you might not have an easy way to tell where it starts, so putting markings, little scratches or engravings, witness marks can be helpful there. So there was the shim. Here I'm just putting some Sharpie on to let me know where that little detent is. On goes the front ring with some felt that's off so that we can access that screw. Here we are threading that front ring onto the lens barrel itself. The optical block is still just loosely hanging out in there. And here's the set screw for the ring. I probably would not have taken that fully out next time. It was really soft. I could imagine a lot of these have dead set screws there. I don't think it's fully important. It just keeps it lined up with the aperture markings. So here goes on the lock ring. I'm not sure I showed this set screw on the lens barrel. Let's see. So that's locked in. So you just want to make sure. Here's checking out the terrible job I did of cleaning. You can see a couple scratches. I'm not sure if those are new or old or otherwise. The only thing I might have not shown here is aligning the optical block with the set screw in the side of the barrel. If you actually get in here and are following my steps, God bless you, but you'll have to figure that one out on your own. So the helicoil is now smoothly spinning, and we're back in action here. Not a lot of calibration. As long as you get the shim back in the right way, you should be fine. Back in the camera. I find these, if you zoom, zoom out, the little rangefinder ring, if you have that all the way in, it's a little bit easier to put the lenses on. But yeah, the helicoil is smooth now, which is the main thing I wanted to fix. I wasn't able to actually clean up the action of the aperture, and here's a shot from the camera. Thanks for watching.